Hi, everybody. It's Create a World with Dr. Deb and uh, and myself, Tantra Maat. This is a very specific conversation we're going to have today. Um, I asked Deb to roll with me, but Deb's been rolling with me around 40 years, so we got rolling down, don't we, Deb? Yeah, we got it down. So I'm in a phone call in an hour that I dread. And last night I was up most of the night going through a series of why did I dread the phone call? And luckily, if you really take time to listen to your self will respond to you. And it goes something like this. I'd go, well, maybe it's because of this. And the self would go, no, it's not that. And I'd do the next one. It would go, no, not that. And then I fell asleep and I dreamed what that was. And that is we're at a border. We're at a border where either individually will be in the devolution, the collapse, the going out of existence, the deconstruction of the world as we know it, or we will be in the construction, what's coming into existence, what's expanding. Collapse was I did say collapse, I think, was expanding. And but in a lot of ways we have no say. My recommendation would be that we have interest because we're at the effect now, humanity is, of an evolutionary curve. We're at the effect of an evolutionary process. And I'm 78, so I can promise you in my 78 years, we have not had this occur before. I can pretty much promise in my grandmother's days and my mother's days that they also did not have this happen during that time. The only time I think we have as Westerners, since I'm not from other cultures, is our Renaissance in England, which was a while ago. But they were at the effect of new information, new understandings of reality. And there were those that were entrenched in the past and what they held reality to be. And there were those that were beginning to neurologically, in the neural fiber of their mind, begin to register new concepts, new things that made sense in a new making sense way. So over the past few weeks, maybe the couple of months even, the creator world's been re-gearing itself. The interesting thing about electromagnetic energy is that it is an intelligence. It is not a personality. It is an intelligence. And for human beings that operate with the electromagnetic field as if it is an intelligence, a lot of really cool stuff starts to happen. human beings that think that they are at the effect of the electromagnetic field, I promise you are. You are at the effect. And there's not a thing you can do about it except align yourself, your electromagnetic field. In Joe Dispenza's work, he talks about thoughts are electric and feelings are magnetic. And he works completely with the electromagnetic field. I have always had an electromagnetic mind. There's no way in the brief hour Deb and I are going to be here that I could ever explain it to you. And if you spent the next 25 years with me, guess what? I could not explain it to you in 25 years. So CreateAWorld has been every Friday, except two, I think, for several years. What that does is it establishes a field phenomenon, guess where? In the electromagnetic grid. So over the past few weeks, possibly months, time is kind of blurred in 2024, I noticed, the direction of CreateAWorld has been moving towards those of us that are collaborators and those of us that remain collaborators in CreateAWorld, bringing to the public the worlds we are creating or the worlds of which we are collaborating with that are being created. This brings me to my first librarian definition. So pretend you're in the library of the field of Tantra Maat. And that is the term field collective. I hope you've written it down. Field, F-I-E-L-D, collective, C-O-L-L-E-C-T-I-V-E. The difference between a field collective and a community is a field collective is a collective of human beings of diverse interest, of diverse relationships that have an overarching interest of sorts within which they can bring their varied beliefs, their varied knowings, their varied understandings, their et cetera, and so on, their resources, their data. It's beautiful. But the overarching field collective, I would say that there are three principles to the overarching field collective of which I am a part. And it's not located in a person. Who thought? Something not located in a person. It's located in the electromagnetic grid. And what Marshall Lefferts, who came to teach one of my classes, calls the noosphere. The noosphere is the next evolutionary phase of the biosphere, characterized by a collective field collective, remember, of human consciousness and information. This concept involves the interconnectedness of thoughts, emotions, and consciousness across humanity, forming a unified layer that impacts reality and evolution. This focus aims to show how collective consciousness and resonance within a group can influence and potentially evolve the noosphere. Now, in ancient days, guess what the archetype would have been? The archetype of a human being that was part of the mind of creation, which we could call the noosphere, a part of the quantum field, which we could call the electromagnetic grid, were called the magicians. It's an archetype that moved with the magic of creation itself. So one of the phenomenon in the field collective that is emergent, that involves probably what many human beings will never even register, but being a mystic and a seer and a prophetess, that is where I register. But it's relational. It's not about a thing. It's not objectified. It's not about doing something or not doing something. It's about what's your relationship with life, yourself, others, the great living whole of which you're a part, and an interest in that. not a solution to trauma, just an interest. It also has to do with being in the maturity of your personality, not that other parts of the personality are immature, quite immature actually. And we have new aspects of personality that we are evolving into. It's really quite a yummy time, of which our local survival personality is not well fit for. It's not a good fit. But in that new budding personality frameworks of which we're a part, you could say the archetype in the background of the fabric would be the magician, part of the field collective that is becoming re-emergent back into the mind of creation, moving with the evolutionary processes that are multi-spectrum. There is not a single song here. We are in a symphony, and we are in a choir, and we are in a choir that is seeking to become coherent, harmonized through the various factors of collectives that are, some are communities, some are organizations, some are fields. Field of Tantra Maat is a collective that operates in the principles of Tantra Maat. But whether all those groups like it or not, they're converging. Hence, the conversation I get to walk into in an hour, and of which I am, guess what? Illiterate. Completely and totally illiterate. So this day is dedicated to not talking about Deb and myself, two other people, one of which is a collaborator, Elizabeth Geyer, and also a member of the field of Tantra Maat, a guardian and a magi, Sarah Harper. The 15th of September through the 21st of September, we'll be going to do one of Dr. Joe Dispenza's advanced retreats. In order for us to do that, we have had to do his first two courses, his initial course and his progressive course. So we are already in the soup. We are already being cooked. And it is a joyous, confronting, for Tantra Maat, delightful, yummy time. So I wanted to talk about, I want to set the field and then turn it over to Deb. I had promised myself I'd stay within a 15-minute range, and I'm 2 minutes away from that. So the place that in the field collective that Joe's work and my work line up is empowering individuals to take responsibility for their evolution and align with their true essence, called in different terms. While Joe's approach centers on reprogramming the mind through neuroscience and meditative practices to form new personality realities, my work emphasizes a deeper engagement with the etheric realms and relational fields of creation, also to have new personality matrices emerge. My focus is on restoring wholeness and coherence within a unified field, as is Joe's, where individuals are seen not as separate entities, but as interconnected beings within the greater multidimensional realm. So my going to see Joe is like a philosopher going to see another philosopher, a scientist going to see another scientist. Someone in the phenomenon of the value of human beings are to themselves and their incredible skills and capacities is tending to that. There's a phenomenon I've invited people to within the field of Tantra Maat. It's not a public calling, because we have been building a coherent field since 2014 as a collective. And so I've asked if people want to join me while I'm there after the sessions are over, and I'll read it to you because it's too complex for me to try to put into words. I had to ratchet it down to articulate level, well, somewhat articulate, articulate, not necessarily understandable level. So the call of the biocoherence work that I want to do within the field of Tantra Maat. And by the way, within the field of Tantra Maat is whoever holds themselves to be in the activity of the Maat, which is harmony, balance, symmetry, proportion, grace, and beauty, and the harmonization of the Tantra, which is so above, so below. So basically, if you carry any of those qualities or any of those commitments, you are in the field of Tantra Maat. It's not the field of my personality or my personhood. But this biocoherence we're gonna go after during the event is to align our biological coherence with a higher state of unity that collects us to the greatness of creation. So this activity is an opportunity to elevate our individual and collective states of consciousness, creating a powerful unified field that supports all life across this planet. Also aligns with the mother, the earth, so we can foster resilience, adaptability, and profound well-being. And we are contributions to a new evolutionary path for ourselves and humanity. So that's my 1 minute over, Deb, my 1 minute over introduction, and I'm going to turn it over to Deb. So we're not going to talk about anything. We're going to reflect back and forth what we're present to. And you're welcome to also. Over to you, Deb.
It's really interesting to hear you say all of that. Because I've been paying attention. We have, as Tantra mentioned, we have to do the two courses before the two previous courses before we can go to the advancements. And we have to take a little test to prove we did it and can pass it. But I'm going for the dimension of personal as an individuated being accomplishment. But I'm also very interested in this work as part of a evolution, I guess I'll say, of the field of psychology. That's one of the fields, one of the areas of life that's beginning to have not beginning to, well, I'll just say it that way, beginning to have elements of collapse and elements of leaping forward. And I'm very interested in contributing to that. But I'm also going as I am very interested in the alleviation of traumatic stress, but not from the old model. And this phenomenon of coherence that he's teaching, that he's not really teaching as much as activating within us, and teaching us how to activate that within us, is something that I'm so drawn to. Very, very, very drawn to. One of the images, I think I can say this, that he showed that was part of one of the modules I just finished, was a whole bunch of metronomes. Some of you may have seen something like this before, because I had years ago, where a whole bunch of metronomes are set off and they're all in their own rhythm. And within a period of time, they're all synced. They're all in coherence. There was some pattern of influencing each other that's different than anything we in the Western world have engaged with. And I think it's phenomenal. I can just imagine the potential there. Like in 1993 in Washington, D.C., there was a very large scientifically rigorously scientifically done experiment with many, 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 many meditators. And some of you may have heard of this. I don't even know the number of meditators, but it was quite large. And they gathered for quite a long time every day for several days. The goal was to see the impact on the meditation and prayer. Didn't matter what faith or spiritual um, alliance you had, it didn't matter as far as I remember. But the intention was to see what was the impact on violent crime in DC. And DC was known for having a very sizable um, violent crime rate. The violent crime went down by such a huge amount. It was so notable. And the term that gets used is statistically significant, but it was very, very dramatic and definitely linked to the effect of the meditations and prayers, which is an activity of coherence in, or the coherence influencing others, not manipulating, not uh, um, doing something so that I get my way or anything like that, but the coherence of the metronomes, the coming together in an aligned fashion that's life enhancing and on behalf of the whole. I'm very, very interested in that phenomenon. And what is that to take that back out into the world? I'm definitely going for my own personal accomplishments. But then there's the group of the five of us. Then there's the whole, however many hundreds of people are coming to this event and standing in coherence with each other to have a particular alignment with. It's really difficult to find the words to say, because in the Western world we think of concrete results, we think of results, accomplishments, stats, things like that, and that may not be the case for some people. Their individuated, unique, and essential phenomenon and relationship with creation may be dramatically different across the hundreds of people, but it's theirs. So that's a significant part of why I'm going. And I'm finding myself changed already, changed in a really strange way. There was a body of work we all did, not together because we didn't know each other then, called the S training, and then it became the Landmark Forum. And they had a saying, I used to be different and now I'm the same. It's very much like that. It's very, very much like that. I'm changing so much and I'm so the same. It's a very odd phenomenon, and I'm right in the middle of the entire process. So I can't say any conclusions. And I don't really have any idea of this level of work, like an outcome, the way Dr. Dispenza does, who's done this for years and uh, has watched many, many thousands of people have their accomplishments. And it's been all over the place. Some of the stories he tells on the uh, modules we're doing are quite dramatic. But I think the thing that interests me, how do I say this? There's a certain commitment. I don't know if people come there just to get their own results or not. I don't know that. Um, so this I find this hard to talk about, obviously. And my phone rang, so I lost my train of thought. Sorry. The aligning on behalf of each other, I think, is something that gets cultivated in a very indirect way, at least based on what I can tell from our pre-course studies. But there's an alignment on behalf of each other that rises in there and that amplifies the potential for each individuated being and the collective. And I find this really fascinating. And I think that's part of the um, intelligences rising that Tantra is mentioning. I really do. I think, when she was describing that part, I was thinking, wow, how could there be anything more dramatic than discovering, oh no, the earth really isn't flat. Oh no, the sun doesn't revolve around the earth revolves around the sun. Those were such shocking, I mean, you can't even say a big enough word of how shocking those discoveries were. And yet people still got up and fed their farm animals and did what they did. And, they had their regular daily lives all at the same time while these dramatic things were happening. And for me, the the way he's talking about coherence and so forth has me think that that is as dramatic as, no, the sun did not revolve around the earth, people. And now that's so common, we don't think about what that must have been like. But we're now shifting, at least in the Western world, which is pretty huge. I mean, the Western mind, the Western culture has seriously impacted uh, huge, huge, huge swaths of the entire world. So to be moving in the Western world into a space of coherence, I think we can't even begin to guess. So I think I'll stop there, Tantra, and let you go back to what, continue with what your points are. And then I'll just keep jumping back in because there's certain ways I could just talk about. No, I got to do one. I got to do one that was funny. Just every now and then he does a couple things that makes fun of himself. He has a particular style for guiding the meditations, and he's made fun of himself a couple times. But the one that really I came across yesterday, he said he was talking about how our tendency to go find answers outside of ourselves. And that one is the other dramatic. Actually, I am going to dare say this. That was the other very dramatic. He actually, what's the word I want? Activates the idea that we really are creation reflecting on itself, that we really are uh, little godlings. And it's difficult to say if you haven't heard the whole thing. The way he says it, it's just such a flow of leading into and of course. Whereas so many of us are used to, even the words we use, it still keeps us separate from our divine nature. As, but the one that was really funny when he was talking about going to get answers outside yourself, first he said, well, first you go to a psychologist and they don't have all of what you need. Then you go to a psychic. Hello, Tantra. Then you go to an astrologer. Then you go to a numerologist. And just the way he did that, and there are so many in our community that are, um, get a lot of juice out of following a couple of astrologers. It just was really funny to me the way he did that whole thing, and he listed all these different ways that we go get answers outside of ourselves. And I think that's going to be a pretty dramatic uh, evolutionary occurrence as well. Back over to you, Tantra.
So it's important to recognize that the word coherence is an internal event. It's an internal experience, really important. And coherence means you can hear. You're in the listening of the mind of creation. You're in communication in a harmonic, synthesized manner. So your capacity to have broad spectrum thinking increases exponentially. So you're not caught in the trauma matrix we found ourselves born into, because there's the resonance of wholeness and coherence. In my book, You as the Mind of Creation, there's a chapter called Three Little Words. It's still one of my favorite chapters. And there are two other words that are also internal. They happen as a phenomenon of experiential state that you begin to become embodied within. One of them is cohesion, the sense of inseparability. So what Dr. Deb said about the Western mind doesn't have inseparability. In fact, we use separability to actually guard against everything and everyone around us. And then congruence, which is aligning with the greater whole of which you're a part. So now I want to go back to the work I've been doing and the invitation and the people that have found their way to the work. So the work is beyond me. Let's say I'm the magician of the work. That'll work for me. First of all, the word God in the field of Tantra Maat is defined as a generating, organizing design of creation, a living matrix. One of the challenges we have right now is a lot of those of us that have recognized wholeness from an early age have been able to listen what some call the quantum field, what I call the field of creation, is I just got a personal text fly up on my computer. It was very sweet. Thank you. But the point was that long time ago, my interest was the human mind. Now, in You in the Mind of Creation, the human mind is your sentient intelligence, your mental perception, and your empathic response. It wasn't just the left side of the brain or the logic brain or the understanding brain. It's more the sentient, experiential brain having an alignment and a coherence, congruence, and cohesion with the mental perception. In other words, our mental perception is organized by separation. It's not organized as being part of the mind of creation. But if we build a sentient intelligence of ourselves and begin to realize empathic response is us as creation moving with creation, a lot of us, Deb talked about that quote about, I used to be different, now I'm the same kind of thing. But there's also the sense that begins to happen in the mental perception. It's what, like in Dominher and other traditions, could be called a new logic, a new sense of something. Like people say that makes sense, and then they go, but I don't mean regular sense, because it has a new reasoning capacity. It has a new interface with the mental mind. So my interest from the beginning, which would have been 60 years ago next year, my interest was to restore the capacity of the mentally perceptive mind because it seemed to be the barrier. When I watched people become enlightened or have awakening experiences, it didn't seem to translate into mental perception. When I want transcendental meditation, and a lot of them are my clients, they could definitely reach a state of bliss and the world could be affected around them, but they couldn't keep a relationship or hold a job because that the two sides of the equation, the secular and the sacred, the alchemical and the biochemical, didn't have a meta point. They weren't convergent. They weren't convergent. But all of us in our own way, mine's 60 years, all of us in our own way have been paying attention to what is now being self-realized. That means it's being realized in all of us little points of light all over the world. And are there others that aren't becoming self-realized? Absolutely. But remember, we're a collective consciousness, human beings are. So the more those of us ping and become the pulse of coherency and congruence and cohesion, the more the quantum mind or the field being the field phenomenon begins to occur. So why I'm going is it's not either or for me. I'm also going for my personal self, but I've observed something in the area of physical healing. And I have observed in the field of Tantra Maat, I have observed that the ability to experience oneself as physically whole, regardless of physical events, increases in a coherent collective. I have observed that even the ability to transmute an illness into life force energy is more present in a coherent collective. But when I wrote this book with Dr. Use the Mind of Creation with Dr. Heather Hunt and Electra Porzel as readers and engagers in conversation with me, one of the things that was apparent, there was another book that started to become emergent called The Metabody. But it's not where I pay attention. It's not my focus. It's not where I would establish my credentials. But you talk to me about me getting to the awakening nature of your mind. I'm yours. I can deliver, and I can deliver with accuracy, and I'm good at it. And you could say I'm a quantum therapist, as Deb will tell you, because if your system isn't viable for its quantum nature to emerge, you should not come see me. Because you're likely to quantum whether you want to or not. And if all your little systems aren't structured enough to sustain the quantum, like what's happening to us right now, Deb and I and Sarah and Elizabeth and another person, Diane, who's going to be going with us, we are paying attention to that our present personality matrix can't hold the quantum nature that keeps becoming emergent, and then we feel like these crackle kind of tries to collapse. But I've never dealt with the meta body. I've never brought that. But the beauty of going to this event, how it all happened, is my brother lives in Nashville. And I have wanted to find an environment where my brother and I can literally clear and reset the epigenetics of our family, which was brutal. And so there's Joe Dispenza's having a 7-day retreat in Nashville, Tennessee. There's my brother, lives in Nashville, Tennessee. All I have to do is go stay with my brother, and then he'll get the effect of the 7 days, and he and I have the chance to cure, reinvent, create a new state of being for the history of our family. So it has a new history moving forward. And I mean history in the cellular system, in the vibrational field, in the frequency base that's ecstasy for me, intimacy, ecstasy, passion, and peace. then I have a collective. It's called the Field of Tantra Maat. So just Deb and I were going because Deb made sure I got to become human, because for a long time I was only a channel. I didn't do groceries for a while. I didn't drive. There were times where I was completely flat out in the quantum field. They used to put a mirror at my nose to make sure I was still breathing. After courses, Deb's husband would carry me to we call it spa, lay me in the spa because until I could come back out of the trance I was in. And then one day I said to Deb, "How long have we had the cat?" And within 3 days, I embodied. Really remarkable, really, because I love the experiential state of being human. But coming back in, because I lived out of body for so long, I knew the human body wasn't really here to suffer. It really is sensuous. It's here to touch and taste and smell and hear, and it's awesome, and see. It's an awesome sensory vehicle. And that what had happened in the physical body that had ruptured that ability. So my life from 54 when I came in to now at 78 has been to bring those two together, bring my meta body into coherence to bring my intimacy, ecstasy, passion, and peace into my physical body. And then in the field of Tantra Mat, we work with transparency, intimacy, vulnerability, and affinity, because it's a collective. So I'm not asking anybody to go after intimacy, ecstasy, passion, peace. However, Dr. Joe Dispenza is, which you can see would make me very interested personally in what he does. But also, Deb and I also brought the field of Tantra Mat to this point in time together in other organizations that we created up until now. And she has a physical challenge that she needs a quantum field. See, I really believe two things. I believe that the healing only occurs in a collective, that there are actually tribes that up until recently never knew illness because they operated as a cohesive collective. I believe that the reason a lot of us can't heal, humans can't heal, as we've lost being that we are actually a symbiotic species that's supposed to operate as a whole system response. So it was perfect. And then when the three others said they wanted to go, 5 is a big number in the field of Tantra Mat. So we had 5 of us that we could also then begin to impact not only the field of Tantra Mat, we could start to say to people, okay, so let's take the next 3 months, the end of the year. Let's all, whoever wants to go through this funnel with us, that me specifically through that 7 days, and let's see what happens in regard to the meta body. Let's see how it affects the physical body, because that's the beauty of a field collective. You go find others that are doing the part you aren't spending all your time on, so they can up level you in an instant, because you've been dealing with coherence, you've been dealing with a collective consciousness, and you've been dealing with getting the mind capable of moving beyond its present perception. So why not go do a 7-day retreat and see what happens to the physical form? Deb, anything you want to add about that or clear up about that? I was trying to take a lot of concepts and jam them into a short period of time.
The epigenetic part you mentioned and the individual, and if y'all notice, I've been saying individuated or unique and essential, distinct from individual, to keep generating new language to distinguish the system we were born into, which is very individual and separation based, and the rising world or system that you can be distinct, individuated, unique, and essential, but you're still part of the collective. Or not still, but Okay, you all get it.
Well, actually, it's impossible to be
Hmm.
why our collective consciousness of humanity is in such a mess is we can't be a collective without being an individual in our direct relationship with source.
Yeah.
When the more we, Deb and I particularly notice this because we talk almost every day. The more we go through these sort of cracks in the matrix, remember the cat going back and forth, the glitches in the matrix. The more we keep doing that, the more we begin to become co-aware. And the more co-aware we become, not co-agree, co-aware, her coherency increases, my coherency increases. And then because we're becoming aware of our unique and essential relationship with the greater whole of which we're a part, what some people call the quantum field. Go ahead, Deb.
So I think not. I'm very certain that that rise of collective uh, engagement, living norm, that is another one of the ones that's as dramatic as no, folks, the Earth is not flat, and the other is the epigenetics. I've said a couple times, epigenetics first came into the psychology world and the popular awareness as negative events that change the system, but they can also be life enhancing events or phenomena. But I love watching the stuff we're learning in Dr. Joe's the pre-course material, because he talks a lot about that. And even, let's say you tend to be a grouchy or angry person, that changes your genetic expression. So the awareness and comprehension of epigenetics and how to shift it into something life enhancing is another one of those phenomenon that's as big as the ones I've named from the Renaissance. And there's no way at this juncture to predict the outcome of that, or how, meaning how it's going to look, how it's going to be, except actually there is a way, because there's so many of us that have this drive, this dream, this reaching for something that we just kind of loosely call the new world or new futures rising, and it won't let go. And it shows up in quotes like life will find a way, and all the things people have done to survive, all the astonishing things people have survived. Those are also huge, huge changes that are occurring. And, preparation for this hasn't always been lovely and fun, because stuff's getting pulled out of us, out of me for sure, that was a life defeating overlay or imprint. And there have even been moments of challenge of wanting to keep hold of it and stay the same, or call it the truth, and then to have to say, no, I'm going to let that go and be on behalf of what is rising and see what happens. That's a little risky, but I don't know what it was like for people who just went about their whole day all the time, their whole life, generation after generation, and then suddenly you're in the choice point of accepting the earth is not flat, or saying, yes, it is. I'm going to stay with that belief. What was that like? I don't mean the political fallout, like when Galileo said, no, no, no. I think it was Galileo. I think I got that right. The sun does not revolve around the earth, folks. It's the other way around. So there was a lot of religious and political fallout. But what was that like as people in relationship to life and each other? What was that like? And it looks kind of small sometimes, at least when I think about it, but the magnitude is huge. So that's my next piece in response to what you just said and asked, Tantra.
Yeah, and there's a real focal point in what Deb's responding to, reflecting on. And first of all, I really recommend that you use these calls, any calls, to just be in your own reflection, because your wisdom is what you're after. Your direct link with creation, your meta self is what you're after. And you should be.
Mm-hmm.
We've been taught that the highest spiritual value is to sacrifice your life for others. And there was this guy in Galilee that said, I don't think so. And he was in an evolutionary curve. He represented an evolutionary moment. Let there be no other gods before me. And he introduced healing, and he introduced rising from the dead. He introduced many of the factors that we now in our modern world are are being forced to consider.
He
Forced
also
to con
introduced the power is within you.
Yes.
Your
So
faith will make you
yeah,
whole.
your faith will make you whole.
Mm-hmm.
So we are in an evolutionary curve that has been talked about for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things Deb said that I want to bring back is you want to, the phenomenon of everything that Deb's talking about means that one would want to be related. One would want to be related. I want to be related to my brother in a holistic way. I want to be related to people in a holistic way. I want that, not to gain anything or to fix anything, because it gives me life and has me experience myself as whole. So I wrote 3 words in the chat, and because I didn't want to forget them, and if I write things down, I can retain. And the words of the chat on the YouTube link, not here, uh, and uh, and there's synergy, synthesization, and synchronicity. And I want you to look them up. Look them up if you had Chat GPT. Look them up in regard to relational fields. What we scientifically know is that the human species, as we presently know it, if it chooses to live separate from itself, if it chooses to isolate itself from others of its species, that it will go out of existence. We're clear about that. That means that we are symbiotic, that we are meant to synthesize information from multiple spectrums. In other words, we're supposed to be interested in each other's existence.
In fact, just in the science I've had the opportunity to study up to this point, and now there's an explosion of new discoveries, but up to this point, you can actually die of loneliness.
Well,
You
that's what the Surgeon General said is the reigning psychological disease in the United States of
Mhm.
America.
And broken heart syndrome is a diagnosable phenomenon now. So that's
Yeah,
just the science behind what Tantra's saying.
that Earth, it's just slowly starting to move around the sun instead of the sun moving around the Earth. Yeah, just slowly but surely. So that then synchronicity, as I noticed there was someone who popped on that hadn't been on this before. That's synchronic. Something in the noosphere, something in the greater mind of creation of which we're a part. We empathically responded, not empathic response like people define it. not like protect yourself from everyone because you're picking up on their pain. You can also pick up on everybody's joy. I mean, choose for heaven's sakes, and get your system reliable to picking up on joy instead of pain. Also, while we're going to Joe's, to increase that faculty. But so in synchronicity, we begin to have thoughts we have reinforced, and it reinforces our direct relationship with reality, which could include all people are trouble and I should stay home in my house, and thousands of YouTube supporting that. I mean, it isn't right or wrong. It's your personal relationship with reality that governs the synchronic response. Just be clear about that. Also something that Joe's going to impact. The last one is synchronicity, synergy. I want you to look up synergy because it's my favorite. I have been talking about synchronization and in a long time because that's what we've all been paying attention to, these coincidences, and that we have been noticing, and then this ability to find information from multiple resources that increases our capacity for awareness. But synergy refers to the enhanced and amplified effects that occur when energies, beings, and or elements come together in a harmonious and coherent manner. It is the phenomenon where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, creating a dynamic interplay that generates new potentials and possibilities beyond individual capacities. Synergy and the meta realities, often involves the integration of different spiritual, mental, or energetic aspects to create a unified field of resonance. Hence, the field of Tantra Maat that I hold is going to be in the field of Dr. Joe Dispenza, which he holds, and therefore I am me, but I am also the field phenomenon of a greater whole of which we are in the field of Tantra Maat a part. This is just something we're not yet able to realize, that we're not only individuals, but we're also field phenomenon. So we're in a dance, the field of Tantra Maat, and those representing isn't stick figures that are going to go negotiate or go litigate. They're literally people have been vibrating in the principles of Tantra and Maat. Can you imagine what might happen if those of us have been vibrating in the field of Tantra Maat are vibrating symmetry, proportion, balance, harmony, grace, and beauty, and vibrating the frequency of so above, so below, so below, so above? Can you imagine what goes in there when those energies amplify? It's this dance of interconnectedness where every part enhances the overall vibration, and it can lead to profound states of consciousness, profound states of embodiment, which I prefer over healing, profound states of way beyond what we even knew could be possible. And that's why we're going. Deb, we're at 1 minute. You want to close this up? We started 1 minute over, so you can go 1 minute over too.
Okay. All of which will be reflected in the I'm so sorry, I forgot the term you're using, the activations that you're offering.
Bio coherence.
Yeah. Not like an advertisement, but I guess I'm advertising because all of that is then going to be broadcast outwards to whomever joins and participates. However you've structured that. I'm sorry, I'm not.
You now got my foot in my mouth. She's now got my foot in my mouth. So let me actually really clean that up.
Sorry.
There are people that are contributing to a specific series of transmissions that I want to do while I'm at the event, after each night. That because I'm very structured. I'm a meta scientist. I'm very technical. But any of you watching this YouTube, any of you that just tie in to me and Deb, mainly me, because I'm the one that's the focal point, between the 15th and the 21st of September will also be part of the field. In other words, money is not the determinant. It's just it gave a way for, there's a lot of work we're doing in the field of Tantra Maat. One of it is rematricing money. So, so many years ago, and if you are interested, I can send you the invitation, the office at tantramat.com. But many years ago, 2020, I experienced a God matrix, very similar to what Joe's doing, by the way, a quantum field matrix within which new systems of reality could rise. That went on for basically 2 years. And there are people that are still in that energetic, still in that quantum matrix. But then all of a sudden, when this event happened, that matrix showed back up again. Very specific matrix where everything begins to quantum to move to the next greater whole. So because one of the interests is rematrixing money to operate on behalf of life and have us exist as whole, I made an invitation in-house. This is not a public invitation, unless you just happen to be on this YouTube and you're watching it, which makes it a little bit more public, but not really, because something drew you here. So by the people that invested in actually doing the activations with me, we're operating in several systems of bringing things into coherence, physical coherence, collective coherence, and monetary coherence. That's what a full spectrum phenomenon of thinking is. And just like Deb said, which I'll complete this call with, just like Deb said, we are where we are going to be thinking so differently every single day of every single week of every single month of every single year till somewhere around the beginning of 2027. We are just going to think different because we're going to be present to the intraconnectedness of all of us as part of the greater systems of reality. And there will be enough of us that we begin to become more and more capable of cognitively being aware and being more and more capable of being cognitively aware. We begin to influence the collective noosphere within which whole new systems of reality can rise. And that includes earth shifts and biological enhancement and mental brilliance and emotional transcendency. It just on and on and on and on. So next week, I won't, Deb and I and Liz won't be on. So what will happen is on the 13th and on the 20th, the people that will be the collaborators that will be doing it will be doing this YouTube inside of the fact we are at getting ready for the event and we're in the event. So we can make this a actually end up 4-week thing, because then when we get back, we'll continue to build the field within whatever we're up to can rise. Thank you. Take precious